I just watched this video about the Netherlands and their new health guidelines, which they've just started implementing. I think they're pretty new. It's not a food pyramid, it's like a circle, and then they have all the stuff you gotta eat. And although they say it's like a recommendation, I think, with the actions they're taking, it's gonna be pretty much guaranteed that most people in the Netherlands and all across Europe will be eating this way. That's kind of the plan. And on the pyramid or the circle, the pie chart, about a very small percentage of it is lean meat, fish. They're really incentivizing that we should do grains, we should do seeds, we should do plant matter. And I think that's great because, well, climate change, we all know climate change, it's rampant, right? It's gone completely rampant, out of control. And livestock, cows, animals are pretty much the cause of it. These animals, they started climate change pretty much since the dawn of time. They've been working on it, and just recently our governments have been taking a lot of action, and it looks like the Netherlands has taken the big step here to really start cracking down. Because obviously if we close these farms down, which I think they're paying farmers to do, and eventually if that doesn't work, if there's some who don't give in, so to speak, then they're gonna have to go to the next measures, right? Because climate change, global warming, it's gonna destroy the world. And it was going to, if really in the past couple hundred years, we didn't start cracking down on it. Our governments didn't start, taking initiative, because back in the day, you could say a few hundred years ago, they were eating mostly animals, right? People were eating mostly animals. The other animals, they weren't in zoos, so they were eating mostly animals, and climate change was rampant. It was getting so bad that really, if the modern world, the system didn't step in, if civilization happened any later, we probably wouldn't even be alive, because our world would just be destroyed, completely destroyed, either completely frozen over, completely warmed up, probably both, right? A little mix of global warming and like an ice age, and people would go extinct, animals would go extinct. It would be a disaster. That plane over there wouldn't even be flying, right? But luckily the modern world came, we invented planes, we invented solutions to climate change, and now the Netherlands, they're taking that big step, right? They're looking towards the future. They're saying, okay, we're gonna step up, we're gonna pay these farmers to close their farms, we're gonna make meat more expensive and instead give us this great healthy alternatives, supplements, lab-grown meats, right? These are healthy alternatives. They're better, they're more ethical, right? They're not barbaric or anything, and they also don't cause climate change like these animals are, and they have been doing. So we got to put them all in the zoos and the gigacities, and we also just have to totally crack down on that. We can't be consuming them anymore. No animals can be. And Netherlands, I feel like they're going to influence a lot of Europe towards this next step, right? Towards our final destination. And I think Western European countries will be the first ones to follow, because they're all part of a big organization, right? NATO, EU, all that. So those countries will for sure take inspiration. And in the future, hopefully countries that even aren't part of those organizations, they'll realize how successful they are doing in stopping climate change. Like, for example, areas that aren't even close to the EU, to NATO, they'll probably be burning up or having ice ages, because maybe they didn't follow in the Netherlands footsteps quick enough and they are still consuming some meat. So then they'll realize, hopefully it won't be too late for them, and they can start cracking down as well, taking these measures, influencing the people, right? The governments and the people working together, as we have been doing, as it looks like the Netherlands is doing. And that's how we can make it to the next step. That's how we can see a better world for our children, right? A better future. And what I would say to anybody who's trying to deny this, or not really convinced, not really to take initiative themselves, right? Because we all have to change. It's a group effort. And although our governments are going to make sure that this happens kind of no matter what, if the people help out, then the governments don't even have to do that. And And if the governments don't have to do that or have to do it less, that means, well, a lot of strides have already been taken forwards by the people. That means that climate change has been reversed even more. So I would encourage everybody to take their own steps to listen. And what I would recommend, if you're not, again, fully convinced, is to look into the past, right? You look into history, you study history. That's why they teach us history. So you look at the past, you see a few hundred years ago when animals were eating mostly other animals, absolutely barbaric and totally unethical. And these people, just a few hundred years ago, they did not talk about climate change, global warming whatsoever. They didn't even see it as a problem. They were all deniers. There are still a few deniers nowadays. They were all still eating animals, just totally rebelling. They didn't have governments to tell them, okay, you guys eating animals are destroying the world, the planet which you claim to love, which you live on, your own lives, the other animals' lives which you eat. It's just totally insane. They didn't talk about it. There's not one recorded case of people talking about it just a few hundred years ago. They didn't debate about it. Nobody took action. Nothing. And there were conflicts, right? So you'd think maybe there was one side which was fighting against climate change and then one which was fighting, no, we want our animals. But no, all of them were eating animals. Even when they had conflicts, they were still eating animals, just rapidly increasing and pushing forward the damages of climate change. And I'm so glad, again, for the modern world, the modern changes, because let's face it, right? At the rate it was going, the world wasn't going to be here. Nothing was going to be here, nothing at all. It would be a post-apocalyptic. It wouldn't even be like a post-apocalyptic movie. There's the green takes over. It would just be like a nuclear bomb landed all over the world, everywhere. Just a meteor, a nuclear bomb. That's what the world would look like if we didn't take initiative a couple hundred years ago and start cutting down on the consuming of animals, the barbaric farming, the barbaric hunting, right? That's what they were doing, and that's what was destroying the world. And now we have people who are noble, who care about this earth. And I feel like back then they just didn't even care. It's really sad, but just the future's looking bright. I'm liking the changes we're implementing so far, and I hope the whole world can take note.